So, let's get this started. Cari amici sportivi, welcome to a Milan Weekly special with, Janusz, he contacted us. He wanted to get more followers. We said, let's see what we could do with our schedule. But so very happy to have you here. ESPN's own Janusz. It is Janusz Michallik.
Yes, it is. Perfect.
Hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. But I'm going to start off with the big question here, Janusz. And
you said, by the way, you said it better. You said it better than my mama.
Oh, well, thank you very much. But, being a Polish man, I'm going to ask you the first question. What is the greatest export of Poland to the world? Is it A, Robert Lewandowski? B, for us hockey fans, back in the day, the Polish prince, Mariusz Czerkawski?
Czerkawski, yeah.
Or pierogies?
100%. I was wondering if you were going to mention pierogies, because if you weren't, I was going to do it. My son's actually home for the holidays. You know what I mean? So now all of a sudden I have to go to you guys do the same thing. I have to go to the Polish section here in Connecticut with all the delis and all that stuff. And listen, I haven't eaten so much Polish food since I don't even remember when, because, I kind of live away from it. And you know how it is. Sometimes it's not the healthiest part. But anyway, pierogies, 100%. Who's Lewandowski anyway?
Exactly. Like I was like, if he doesn't answer pierogies, I'm like, I don't know. I think I'm going to cut this podcast short. But yes, definitely the greatest export. But first of all, thank you for giving us the time. Thank you for joining me. And I know Steve cannot be here today, but I'm taking over the reins today. But I just wanted to start off by saying, growing, being born in Poland, coming into the U.S., playing soccer. I wanted to ask you, like, how was that for you? Like, you did leave, at a young age, but, playing, being born there, playing in the United States. If you could talk to us a bit about like your course of going from there to here and the love of soccer/football.
Well, it's a long story. I hope you have a lot of time, but I'll try to make it as short as possible. Yeah, I mean, look, I never in my life did I think that I was going to be in the United States for any reason. The main reasons, I was born and lived till I was 17 years old in communist Poland. If you remember, you couldn't go to the West unless you were, an athlete, right? And only, I used to travel, of course, with my junior teams and the senior team when I made it. But, they were keeping an eye on us, that's for sure. And so I really never thought of United States as a destination at all in any way until, of course, my father, who was a Polish professional, played for Poland and played Polish First Division, European Cups. Actually scored against Bologna in Cup Winners' Cup, the decisive penalty. They went on to play PSV and Feyenoord actually. So anyway, my father ended up coming here to the old NASL. With Pele's and Beckham, all those guys.
Yeah.
And, because at the time in Poland, even though you couldn't leave abroad, if you remember, Zibi Bonik was actually the first player that was allowed to leave Poland. They changed the age group because in my father's day, I think it was 30 or 31. After that, if you were a special level player, they would let you leave. My father, of course, was one. But you had to wait till 31 or 32. I can't remember. And for Zibi, they made an exception, of course, for him to go to Juve and subsequently went to Roma and all of that. Yeah. So when my father left, he was here. I didn't come. My parents were divorced, and I stayed in Poland because I was already, I signed my first contract when I was a 16-year-old player. Started training with the first team in the first division. Started to play with the Polish junior national teams. So I'm like, why do I want to go to America for what?
Yeah.
But, as it goes, I came here on vacation, still kind of didn't like it as much and went back and played. And then second time I came around, just, life happens. And you realize that, well, you may not see your dad. Remember, it's still communist Poland.
It's different, yeah.
We couldn't leave for personal reasons. I just did it because I was young. And so it was all kinds of things. And I came here, I stayed, and the rest is history. But it really wasn't planned in any way. And it just, as I said, life happens
Life
sometimes.
happens, right? And was it hard for you? Let's say, like, I try to put myself, like, let's say, like, in a Giuseppe Rossi kind of thing, where he grew up Italian, just like ourselves here, and had the opportunity to, play for the United States, but it's like, no, I want to play for my home country. Was it a hard transition for you to, like, yes, I'm going to play for the US? You did win trophies there at the US. Was it hard for you to, like, USA is my country now, but having that heart back in Poland, if you could maybe describe that for you, that feeling for you?
Yes, but again, remember, I mean, this was in the time of the internet. It was, when I left, it was 1984. So when I came here, I'm pretty sure it's similar in Canada. It's not as if you just come in here and you want to play for US, right? I mean,
Yeah.
first of all, there was no professional leagues. I play indoor soccer, which I loved. We played, in the Cleveland Coliseum. I played for Cleveland Force with, by the way, my roommate, Canadian, Gino Di Florio. I'm sure you guys know. Well, I hope you know who he is. He's my age now, but
Yeah, no, I think that name rings a bell. Yes.
Di Florio from Toronto, an excellent player. He was my roomie. He was a Cleveland Force at the time. We were selling out. I mean, our average was 19,000. Star
Wow.
Wars theme, Darth Vader and the lightsabers when they turn off the lights, the smoke coming out, all shebang. Just so you know, I mean, Cleveland Cavaliers at the time were asking us for tickets. I mean, if they drew
Wow.
5,000 people a game, they were really happy.
How times have changed, right? But it's great to hear these kind of stories from there. But like you were saying, it comes down to, like, life happens, and we adapt ourselves to everything that life throws at us, right?
So I had to wait to become a citizen. You have to wait 5 years anyway. So I wasn't even thinking of becoming a citizen, of playing for the United States. And as it happens, sometimes you need a little bit of luck. After 1990, of course, in Italy in the World Cup, Bora Milutinovic was coming in, the famous coach in charge of 5 different teams and 5 different World Cups. But before he came in, it was a few months where they needed an interim coach, and the interim coach just happened to be a Polish, coach or a Polish background, John Kowalski, who at the time called me in, and my paperwork just came in. Just because, not because I was trying for it, and so they called me for, first when Bora Milutinovic came in, called me in, 50 people in Denver. We were supposed to play Uruguay and Argentina in the first 2 games, and Bora Milutinovic came in and says, okay, there's 50 of you, 18 will be in the team roster. I'm going to keep 3 or 4 in the stands, and the rest goes home. I would have been happy just to be in the stands, even, and it turns out I started the game. We beat Uruguay, then we lost to Argentina with, Caniggia, and Maradona was suspended, which is the biggest tragedy for me, because I had a chance. I played, against Argentina once, then the Confederations Cup, the winners of all confederations in Saudi Arabia, the very first Confederation Cup, Argentina was there, and we were in the same hotel for 2 weeks, but he was still suspended, and so that's kind of unfortunate, because that's my years, and would have been nice to tell the story about me and Maradona.
Wow, that's like it's fantastic to hear stories like that. And just before we went on live, and Marcello sending me some notes there, and talking, like, that you had to play against you played against Italy, you played against Juve twice, and you beat Arrigo Sacchi's, because this is a Milan. This is a Milan 1-1. So you know what, I'm going to tell Presidente from whatever, but you were able to play that side, the Arrigo Sacchi side. But if you could tell us about those kind of memories, and what comes to mind when you think about that stuff.
Again, stop me if you think it's going low, but there's some good stories. Yeah, I mean, look.
Oh, we're listening. Go ahead.
Juve twice. The one here in the United States actually was in my state in Connecticut. It was 0-0. It's terrible. It was like the World Cup in '94. Remember, Italy had to play in 100 degrees. Same thing. That game was nothing. The best game, before I even get to Milan, because that's special for me, obviously, because I've been a Milan fan for a long time. But one time I remember Bora Milutinovic took us for a preseason to first to Germany, but we were going to Italy to play in I hope I pronounce this right, Valle d'Aosta It's in the Alps. It's not far away from Turin.
Yeah.
And Valle d'Aosta, and that's where Juve used to go. And we went in Fiorentina, so they put it together a tournament, and it was in the old Delle Alpi, and a small stadium in Valle d'Aosta. I forget the name of the stadium, but it was us, Russia, Juve, and Fiorentina, right? So first game is against Fiorentina. And I remember, I'll never forget this, because Alexi Lalas just came into our team, and Kobe Jones from the Olympics, or wherever they were, just first time that they joined our team as young players. And we're sitting in the hotel, and Bora Milutinovic goes, the pregame talk, right? It was still in the hotel before we left. And he goes, okay, remember. And, he had a heavy accent. He says, and he was looking at the younger players that just came in more so than us. He says, Fiorentina has 4 important players. And he goes, they have Batistuta, they have Effenberg, they have Baiano, and they have Laudrup. It's very important we pay attention. Guess what? 4-0, all 4 scored. I laughed. I never laughed so hard afterwards. You know how players, we try to, obviously, you don't want to lose 4-0, but later in life, when we remember the speech and we get together as players, we laugh so hard. And of course, then after that, we lost 3-0 to Juve with, Roberto Baggio, Del Piero, and Baggio, I think, came in the second half. First corner he took, I think Del Piero scored on a volley immediately from it. If my memory is going, I know that Ravanelli scored twice on Tony Miola.
The Silver Fox, Fox.
So anyway, and Milan, Arrigo Sacchi, look, I still have a big picture here at home from Upper Deck, used to make us, because they were a sponsor, massive one. I have, me trying to tackle Rijkaard. It was a special game in Chicago. Come on, Billy Costa Curta, Tassotti, Maldini in the back, Carlo Ancelotti, whom I commentate now all the time and talk about, he played the ball, and I still till this day don't remember if it was Van Basten that scored or Rijkaard. I can't remember. I know Hugo Perez scored for us. Eric Winalda set the goal up. It was a tremendous atmosphere in Chicago. Soldier Field was almost full, I think, if I remember correctly, or very, very close to it, and, Donadoni, and the play, Van Basten, Rijkaard, Gullit, my goodness.
I'm soaking this all in right now, and it's basically what us real Milanistas, and I'm going to say real Milanistas because we have been following this team through thick and thin, and we always keep on, living in the past, and it brings up these memories. But I want to ask you, let's say, your opinion. We're going to talk about today's Milan and Serie A, and can anybody would have predicted, whether it be somebody from ESPN yourself, a soccer pundit and a person that will share his opinions, did anybody predict this? Like, everybody was saying, Milan might be better, but who would have thought Milan would be first right now as we speak, a point ahead of Inter? Can anybody would have predicted this, Janusz?
No, we do have to remember it's early. I want to look at it as, glass half full rather than half empty, right? But I think we need to be cautious with this team. I almost don't like the narrative that's happening right now, because you do have to temper expectations. You do, because fans are funny. They all know that this Milan is nowhere near. Everybody. I'm sure of it, that every Milan fan, if you really try to talk to him honestly, they appreciate what Stefano Pioli has done. They appreciate the young players we've seen. You see that starting lineup, the other day against Genoa. Kululu, paid the price for the header from Destro, but then scored the other end. But, these are young and experienced players still. And there's no coincidence that the last 2 games were drawn, right, against an opposition that, I
agree, yeah.
You maybe, I'm not saying you're supposed to beat, but you could.
But do you agree? Do you agree that those kind of games, the Milan of maybe a couple of years ago, and that's what we kept on talking about on the
last
podcast.
Year they would have lost them.
Thank you. Right. So we would have lost, and yes, you're supposed to gain those points against the Parmas, against the Genoas, but it's always the unwritten rule about Milan. We will face these lower tier teams, and in Serie A, like I'm sure in other leagues, but there's no easy games. Matteo Destro all of a sudden becomes Pele, and he wants to score, all these goals. But in the end, we salvaged. I think somebody was saying on DZN Italia that against Parma, we lost 2 points, and against Genoa, we salvaged a point. And I think that was very well put. But
Yeah.
in the end, like you're saying, it's these young players, and grinding out these different types of formation. Like you're saying, Kalulu, big mistake. Didn't clear the ball very well, gave up the goal, then scores from over there. And people like to say, no Ibra, no Hernandez, no Benacer, but it shows you what kind of grinta, as we would say, this team has.
Yeah.
And showing that, but then again, if we would have been playing Juventus, Roma, look at Roma today, Torino is just completely awful. But if we were playing a big top tier team, I don't think we would have won those games. But keeping our eyes on the prize, right?
Yeah, because I think it's important that people still remember that this is a Milan team that maybe just foundation is being laid down right now. I mean, it's still many questions. You still wonder how some of these players develop, right? You still have the question of Zlatan Ibrahimovic. As good as he is, and as much as you need him, that this is going away soon. And in fact, it should be. That's the nature of that beast, right? I mean, he came in to maybe start this, and he's helped tremendously to kind of give the younger players and even some experienced players a belief, right? Because he's such a leader. He's got so much experience, of course, and all of that, right? But if Zlatan Ibrahimovic stays there too long, that tells me that something's not being done right. It's just as simple as that. Because when it's all said and done, I mean, he's not going to be winning massive prizes with this team. At least I don't think yet, unless this year it's something special where maybe Juventus, we saw them dropping points again, and maybe Inter somehow will be dropping points, and it's not impossible. But I think you kind of want to. I always think of it as that you want to beat the best team while being the best team, and I don't know if Milan are just are ready for that yet.
It's we keep on saying, like, people want to talk about, like, they were kind of disappointed the last couple of games, but I'm like, guys, anybody at the beginning of the season would have told you we would be first with a point ahead. Everybody would have taken that spot, and we wanted to make Champions League. But the difference between a winning mentality and La Grinta, as they keep on saying, is that even with a team of youngsters against Genoa, against Panama, we should have had a better result. But like you were saying, we would have lost these games last year, and on that note, let me ask you, who out of all these players have surprised you the most from the beginning of the season?
I don't know if surprise. I can tell you who I think is, first of all, and I see him develop, from year to year, and I still think he's in the beginning is Benacer. I mean, he's such an important player in the center of the pitch, right? I mean, it's always, and especially I think in Serie A. I think for me, he's been very, very good. He's being missed, tremendously every time he doesn't play. I mean, that to me is an important player. I guess my biggest surprise on the plus side too would be Kjaer.
Yeah,
because Matteo Bonetti here, we've talked about it, and I've said it to him a while ago, and he didn't believe me. And I'm not saying that I'm right or he's wrong, but I'm not the biggest Romagnoli fan. What I mean by that is, and I think we're seeing that in the last couple of games, that he's not this sort of one where, and he's still young, so I give him, relatively young. So I don't want to take anything away from him, and if he comes good to a level where, I'm going to gladly say, wow, I mean, this is the development, but he's not there. He's not ready yet. And we see it with these younger players next to him, these couple results, that's what a dominant center back does. He makes a Kululu or Gabbia better. Now, Kjaer does that. I would venture that against Parma and Genoa, if Kjaer was there, you're not losing both of them. I'm not saying that would have been just because of Kjaer, but
no.
So Kjaer surprised me because he's been around forever, right? I mean, at some point, when Milan were getting him, I'm like, oh my goodness, here we go again, getting, some of these washed up players or players on the cheap, the Galliani era towards the end with Berlusconi, where, if somebody didn't want somebody with a little bit of a name,
the Condor, Janusz, the Condor used to come and pick up for free, parameter zero, the Condor. I love those days.
Galliani would have found a way, right? I mean, and everybody would get excited because the name itself would ring a bell. but most of the people would have forgotten that, they're way past their best. So yeah, Kjær is one of them. Obviously, Calabria on the on the right side has been very, very good. Although I still think you need a more dynamic player there.
Definitely.
So it's funny because I feel badly speaking about a player whom I think is doing a good job. But again, I'm still remembering playing against some great Milan teams,
Yeah.
and so Teo is obviously that sort of a player. You need someone that stays a little bit, and Calabria may be the guy eventually. But I still think that you need Milan. They're going to,
They
especially
need.
with Zlatan is there. You need these guys that can go box to box nonstop,
Now,
right?
how about like you're talking about Tio Hernandez, and people have brought this up in the past where do you think that Tio Hernandez can go through the Gareth Bale phase, going from a left back to a winger? I know, like I remember that game that Hotspurs were having at Inter where he scored those 3 goals. He was still a left back and he demolished everybody. And coming into a winger, do you see him as like his stats don't make any sense for a defender, but I don't know, like maybe somebody that's more experienced than all of us. Maybe your thoughts on that, or would you keep him there in the
Well,
left back position?
Well, I was a left back, so I can tell you this. Well, no, you don't want him to be that because I think his strength is that he comes late from deep positions, right? So
Mhm.
it's those quiet runs that defensively midfielders and defenders don't see right away. Because I think if you pushed him higher, then he becomes easier to defend because he's already there. He's arrived early, right? As a winger, you're going to be further up the pitch. I think the beauty of him and a lot of fullbacks of that sort is that they do still arrive a little bit late, right? The play develops. The eyes are always drawn on the ball. Not everybody participates in every play, right,
Yeah.
on the pitch. So all of a sudden now, if you're smart, you just wait for the right moment to bring him into the game, or he brings himself into the attack. So I think that's a strength. So I wouldn't want to change that. The only way I could see the same happening is Milan went to 3 in the back, and that doesn't to make him a wing back, which I don't see under Pioli or anybody really. I
And
mean,
we don't have the quality. We don't have the quality in center backs right now, right? So
correct,
I just
correct.
want, to get your opinion on it because people have mentioned it from over there. But in the end, Milan are surprising a lot of haters. I would like to call them. Whether it be from you're relying on a 39-year-old man when we've scored from multiple players. We've won all the game or not lose without Ibrahimovic, but. In the end, looking at Serie A, we always been saying since the beginning, we are happy. Forget Milan being in first. We are happy it's an open campionato. How many times have we seen in the past by winter, Juventus give them their Scudetto because nobody's going to pull back? And how about, let's say, from your side, being looking at all these games, whether it be from the English Premiership, the Serie A, La Liga, isn't it good to have an open Serie A finally?
Well, yeah. To be fair, I think Serie A has been. Well, yeah. Look, obviously Juventus had run away and all that, but I think they were pushed at the very least. I like what Napoli have been doing, and Inter, and Atalanta maybe not so much pushing, but just being involved there. Where there's every weekend there's not just one, but there's 2, 3, or 4 games that truly matter, right? So I
Yeah.
think the strength of Serie A will be not necessarily if somebody can win over Juventus, but you want the Serie A to be the league that, to a degree Premier League is, where any given weekend you don't know what's going to happen. In other words, is it Crotone or Spezia or anybody where they really can put up a fight, a real fight. And I think that's almost more important because by virtue of that, every game becomes important. Right? Every
Yeah,
game.
no, definitely.
Remember, I don't always agree with Jose Mourinho, but the other day he said it, and he's right. Of course, is that the difference between Premier League and he was obviously in Serie A with Inter, and he was there with Real Madrid. He says you could look at the schedule and you could say this is 3 points, that's 3 points, that's 3 points, right?
Mhm.
Where in Premier League you truly really can't say that, and it is true. It's not. I'm not being.
No, but I like this conversation because we'll say the exact same thing, but the other way around, where we'll say that in Serie A, we've seen it for all years that the
Mhm.
Genoas,
Right.
the Veronas, and that's like there's no easy 3 points, and there's always that banter between Serie A and the
Right.
English
Right.
Premiership, and that could be a conversation for another day. But do you feel like on any given game time that versus the English Premiership to me, I think they're about the same. But I find that if I watch a Manchester United versus I don't know Watford or anything like that, I'm gonna expect much more of a win from Manchester United than seeing Juventus Benevento. It's like, okay, this like Milan Genoa on paper, we should not even been tying that game. But I love to see, let's say, maybe your perspective as a person that watches a lot more than me, but your opinion on that.
Well, remember the reason that the games are somewhat close at times in Serie A too is that the dominant teams are not as dominant as they may be, say, in Premier League or even the two Spanish teams. They're struggling. Do you see what I mean? I
Yeah,
mean, Milan is nowhere near when they once were. Inter truly, they're getting it, but you know what I mean? And,
yeah.
and Napoli's coming into things, and Atalanta is upsetting some teams as well. But that's why. So there's a difference between. I've always said that I want a dominant team to struggle with a weak team, even though they're, you'd say on paper they shouldn't be, right? So in other
Yeah.
words, a Liverpool, when they have everybody, they're dominant, but it's not going to be walkover.
No,
So
no, a lot of similarities,
right,
between
right.
both teams, and you
So
look at
I think we're agreeing. I'm trying to figure out if we're agreeing. But the bottom line is, Juve started, not the way they should, but I still think they're gonna find their rhythm. I really do. I don't know how much of it is the inexperience of Pirlo. I think there's a little bit of that. But I commentate Serie A, and I see once they catch their rhythm, they're still going to be difficult. If they solve their midfield problem, they're going to be very, very difficult to beat, because I think they're more of that team that they just go through teams. They win the games they're supposed to win.
yeah,
Whereas I'm not so sure with Milan yet. It looks better this year, but it's
definitely.
still early, and I'm going to wait. Now, can Milan do that? Maybe. Let's just wait a few more
It's a
weeks.
big maybe.
It's a big, big maybe, where I think that Juventus can get there sooner, and even Inter to a degree, although I don't like to say that out loud, but especially now being out of Europe, that's not going to hurt them, right? And you have to remember that. I mean, and Antonio Conte, right? If you give him a week to
Oh
prepare.
yeah,
So now, it's a negative that they're out of Champions League. They're probably not crying too much about being out of Europa League, right?
no,
So they become more difficult now to negotiate because they're going to be rested. They obviously have a pretty deep squad as well, and they're going to become a difficult opponent for everybody.
definitely. We're talking about the Champions League and Europa League. Have it like the top teams in all the leagues are actually playing in Europa League. A lot of people bring up COVID, playing in front of no fans. Where do you stand, Janusz? Like people saying, "Oh well, Milan's been playing a lot better because they don't have the pressure from the fans." Or what do you think about this whole playing with no fan? I'm sure it's much different. You as an explainer, you could probably speak better to this, but do you put any truth to these teams playing in front of no fans where they don't hold the pressure? People are saying that if Milan played in front of fans, they wouldn't perform this much here. I want to
You
ask
know,
the next player.
there's something to that, and it doesn't happen everywhere. But I think with me, there's certain clubs that are so massive where most people don't understand what pressure means. Really, you know what I mean? Because I mean, you have to remember, if you Barcelona, fans make you accountable, and
Yeah,
some players thrive on it. There are players like Zlatan. It doesn't matter if you put him in front of 500,000 people, he's going to play better because he's an entertainer, right?
mhm.
He's not the sort of player that gets nervous before games, right, or anything like that. He performs. He loves it. The more hate he gets, the better he becomes, right? But you have to remember, not every player is like that. Now imagine all these young players, and I'm not going to be naming their ages because but they're all 20, 19. Imagine all these players that we saw the other day,
Mhm.
because now imagine them at the San Siro with 80,000 people there. Now all these fans understand that they're young and they shouldn't, but they just can't help themselves. If the result starts going against you, it becomes, hey, we're Milan, we should be doing better, we must do better. While for a second there or two forgetting, wait a second, this kid is playing for the first time. I mean, that shirt is very, very heavy.
like Lulu, like what if they would have started booing him because of that mistake at the
Well,
other game?
right, right. Does he recover? I mean, not. You have to remember that not everybody has to be strong mentally right away.
Yeah.
That
So
takes time. So in a case of Milan, I I don't know this. I'm guessing, but being a player, I'm trying to imagine. I remember the pressure I felt playing against Milan. Now, imagine if I was playing for Milan, and then all of a sudden you lose one or two or three against the smaller teams. All of a sudden, that 80,000 people just. And it's not like they turn on you. They just love the club so much. They want the club because how many teams have lived through the Saki years or Fabio
yeah.
Capello all these years, right? So they know what expectations mean because it's being passed on from generation to generation to generation. If you Watford, I mean, what pressure from what fans? And I'm just throwing a name or
Yeah,
Spezia,
no,
obviously.
yeah.
So I think they're going to give it a little bit more slack because there's no culture of winning. There's no culture of being able to say to everybody, we are the best. We are six-time Champions League. We are this. We are that. We've won this. That. How many clubs are like that around the world? So I do think that to some degree, this young team that's being built by Stefano Pioli, I would venture to say that is benefiting from the fact that they're not, to some degree, benefiting from the fact that they have a little bit of peace. Because remember, fans will make you crazy at training. Forget the games. But I mean, you think you go into training and you're going to have your peace. We all know what happens in Serie A when there's training, right?
Yeah, definitely from where. But I like your honesty there, and I think a lot of people. I think we agree with you that there is a an effect to not having fans. Some teams will have a little effect to big effects from over there, but definitely right now, at least we have an open Serie A. We like to watch this Milan here. We do have Sassuolo. I think that's going to be a big game for us. Ibra should be coming back if everything goes well there. I like the way you mentioned, that people are getting excited, Ibra, but me and Steve keep on saying, guys, he ain't gonna play until he's 45. We wish that he plays until he's 45 years old, but we need an alternative from there. In the end, and I want you to be as straightforward as possible. As whether it be an ex-soccer player, the experience that you have, being on ESPN, looking at what would you predict Milan? Do you see Milan? Let's go this way. I'm not even talking about Scudetto. Do you see Milan finishing in the top four if they could maintain what they're doing?
I
You
did
can
not
say
think.
no is an acceptable
No.
answer.
Yeah. No. I did not think that ahead of the season for sure. And I have to own up, and I didn't think that Stefano Pioli was the right choice. I didn't think that they were supposed to keep him. If they were going to keep him, I kind of wanted Ralph Ragnick because I know what he's done, and look at the whole Leipzig thing, what they do.
Yeah.
Szoboszlai now, who Milan wanted, is going from Salzburg to Leipzig. I mean, tremendous job. And I know that Ragnick wanted the keys to the house, which they didn't want to give him, and they went with Pioli, and so far so good. The way I look at it right now, I think they are good enough to be top four, especially, I mean, we'll see what happens with Atalanta and Papu Gomez, right? I mean, that's a big one. Although if you watch the game over the weekend, when Papu Gomez came on the pitch in the second half, the entire game changed, right? I mean, completely changed.
There's nothing. I hope that the truth comes out. We heard some clips. Some people sent us some clips, and I'm sure you heard some stuff on your side, but we can't talk about it. But I just hope one day this thing comes out, because Papu Gomez, what is he, 31? He can give a team 31. Like, he's small in stature, but he's a fantastic player, and it just hurts to sometimes see, like, in this day and age, putting personal feelings aside, it's like, are you putting him on because he's the best player out there, or do you have an agenda? And then, you in your position, like, well, do I put him on? But he told me this stuff. Do I have to lead an example? It's hard. It's really hard.
If I had to guess, by the way, I know this is about Milan, but I think it's an important one because it's going to happen. It happens on every team, by the way, what happens with Papu Gomez, because, obviously Papu Gomez was being cast aside a little bit. I mean, Atalanta has to move on because we were talking about Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Obviously, There's a big difference between 32 and what's Zlatan now.
39. He's going to be 40 soon.
But remember that Atalanta is the team that always kind of gets rid of players, right? And then they bring younger players in. And if you look at Papu, the way he plays, I mean, look, Ruslan Malinowski and Pessina in particular have been very, very good. And you want them to play. And by the way, against Juve, both Pessina in the first half and Malinowski, after coming back, they had COVID, whatever. They were good. They were good. But they're not Papu yet. But how do we play when you kind of start putting him in and you still feel like Luis Muriel has to come in? So I think what happened, here's the captain. I think Gasperini has told him a little bit, look, there's no way I can play you all the time. Papu Gomez said, come on. And, you know what happens after that. So it's funny because it happens more often than people think when you're trying to push aside a little bit. I'm not saying that he was trying to push him aside totally, but push aside an icon of the team who's used to not only playing all the time, but starring in it, who's the captain, all of that. So I don't think that's going to happen with Zlatan because there's a big difference. And eventually, his time's going to come physically, but I think so. So anyway, so Atalanta is going to be a little bit of a question mark what happens there. And I still think it's Juve. Inter, and Milan, and then Napoli somewhere there in between. You can flip-flop, some positions, but top four with this sort of start is reachable for Milan.
I love it because it is like a soap opera, all these different stories coming out in all the newspapers, and I love all these rumors. And Steve lost he calls it the mercato madness. Actually, you know what? I just thought of something. I think you would appreciate this. My cousin had one of these sticker albums that he found. This is from 1992. A sticker album with the Lentini there on front, and look at these kind of things. Like where has time gone? Look at these kind of things. Like I brings me back to my childhood. But
I mean, those are great times. I'm telling you. I mean, I was almost I knew this was going to be a podcast because I was going to wear the Milan shirt from that game against the Van Basten, Rijkaard, and all that. I still have them. Same with Italy.
I'm not jealous. We're not jealous at all there, mentioning this kind of stuff there. But talking about all these great players and just the reminiscing, and hopefully Milan comes back, and for us, but we keep our feet on the ground, just the way people were talking about Milan. To maybe in the Scudetto, guys. After a couple of look at it, we're 1 point behind. I love this kind of stuff. I wanted to finish off by asking you. Always with the English versus Italian league, and the Italian league is more, tactical, and the English league is like this. And, the only thing that I will say, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I watch as much, calcio and football as you. But the one thing I've noticed throughout the time is that whether it be like Carlos Tevez, when he came to Juventus, and, the story that came out that his father called me, because I've never seen you run like this. And him saying, I've never had cardio like this. Even Cristiano Ronaldo took him over a year to really adapt. He ain't scoring 40 goals and this and that. And people saying, if Messi came to Serie A, he wouldn't score 40 goals. Why is this? Are we talking for no reason? Are we arguing for no reason that Serie A is always tactical and the Premiership, it can't hold a candle to Serie A? Or is it just like, hey, it's different kinds of football. Enjoy them as there is. I don't know. Like people keep on saying, go to Italy to complete yourself as a soccer player.
Yeah, it's both. I think I think in a way. Let's just assume that anything's possible and you can go anywhere. If I were a young player, or coach, I send everybody to Italy for formative years, because that's how truly you learn how to play football. Just like you drive, you take lessons sometimes. I mean, you can drive by yourself, but you probably, if you never took lessons, you probably break a few laws almost immediately, right? Mm-hmm. So look, I mean, the tactics of it are important. That's a foundation of the game, to understand what each position requires. I'm telling you, I mean, this is happening a little bit more. And I was lucky to grow up in Poland, because I remember when I was young, I mean, they actually still taught you to play every position, what it meant, what strengths and weaknesses what strengths you needed to have to play in a certain positions, right? And they moved you around a little bit. Dutch do that probably better than, or just as good as anybody else, or they're even more proactive in the sense that when you're young, you play in different positions, and then the coaches kind of find what your tendencies are, and then eventually they say, look, you've been here, there, and everywhere, but I think based on what we've seen, this is where you're going to be successful, because they want you to be successful, just like in Italy, right? You have to understand the game. Look, many players are talented and can play the game, but that doesn't mean that they know how to play the game. Now, for example, I've always liked, Yeah, if you go pure entertainment, I'll go to Premier League because it's fast, everything goes forward, goals left and right.
Mhm.
Although Italy scoring goals, but you can see some incredible mistakes committed by players that are great players. I mean, I'm trying to think of it right now, but I've heard so many great players going back for international duty where their coach is saying we have to undo everything that they've done now for the last 2 3 months in Premier League.
Mm.
Because you know what I mean? Because when you get back to it and when you truly want to win something, it's not about entertaining. Now, if entertaining comes with it, well, that's perfect, right? But for the most part, you have to you the game happens so fast right now that reading, anticipating, and understanding, seeing what's going to happen in the future, if you will, is key. And I think that's something that you get in Serie A, right? Because the tactics are so important to managers. All those managers are still going to Coverciano. They're still going through certain idea of playing the game, right? It doesn't really change. I mean, there's some foreign coaches there, but
Yeah.
the coaches will fall apart if they don't understand what the players are used to, because players have certain expectations, right?
No, it makes
Contrary, contrary to what people believe, players want to learn. They want to get better. They don't always love training, but they do want to get better. So I think that's what Serie A gives you. So I don't look at it from the standpoint of what's more entertaining or whatever. I just look
there's
at
a
it.
flavor for everybody, right? There's a flavor for everybody, and liking Serie A, liking Premiership, liking La Liga. In the end, it's always going to be a nice argument or a discussion with everybody, but to each their own. That's the way we see it, and it's
Well,
like,
I think it's how you see the game too, and I'm sure you
yeah,
guys talk about that, right? I mean, look, if you go to Premier League, everything's nice and tight, beautiful new stadiums, 50 cameras out there singing and all that, right? And sometimes in Serie A, Serie A still have a massive problem with stadiums. There's more and more built, right?
yeah,
But you all know the politics of your local politics of, look at San Siro, right?
yeah.
So I think when you look at the full product, sometimes you can understand why people may just, especially the English-speaking people around the world, just say, "Oh, I don't understand the language. The stadiums aren't full, and the game looks different." And there's a lot of truth to that.
No, you're making sense. So, honestly, Janusz, thank you so very much for joining. I mean, I'm just gonna throw you some quick fire questions. We're gonna finish off with that. I would like to know, who was your favorite player growing up?
Well, my two favorite players are Daniel Passarella, named my son after him. He's sitting next to me, actually.
Oh, nice.
I go, and Ruud Krol, Dutch great from '74 too. Well, both of them played, in those days. But those are my two favorite players. More because it's not necessarily positions that I play, because center backs, but I love the way they play. I love the way they understood the game and made it look so easy.
How about favorite player right now?
I love Messi still. I still Leo Messi fan, and Robert Lewandowski by virtue of birth, and
Yeah.
my teammates, Claudio Reyna's son Gio. I'm liking the young kid. He looks smart. He's a special player like his dad was.
Awesome. And you're talking about jerseys that you have. How about that one piece of football memorabilia, not for monetary value, but sentimental value to you? What do you hold near to your heart? Anything in your collection right now?
Well, the favorite jerseys. If I was lucky. There's so many. I mean, I've mentioned Milan. That was big. Playing against Brazil, the Brazilian jersey. When we played in Fortaleza in Brazil, 70,000 people. Rai scored all three goals, unfortunately for us. Roberto Carlos in the game. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I was going through those jerseys because I haven't seen him in ages. They were in my closet. I didn't look at him. I don't have them displayed. My son thinks I'm crazy because there's so many great ones there.
Tell your dad he's crazy, David. Tell your dad.
He's listening. He's working. But so that Italian jersey too. I've a ton. As you can tell, we have this affinity with Italians. We just played you in Nations League, and
Yeah.
and our national anthem was written in Italy, and
Oh,
and even the words to the national anthem have Italy in it. So
and
uh,
we enjoy the pierogies. So you see, it's a come and go kind of thing. We're exchanging that stuff, and now I'm getting hungry for pierogies. And one of my ex-girlfriends, she was Polish, and she knew how to get straight to my heart. I miss those pierogies from
Well,
there.
listen, I'll definitely visit. I used to come to Toronto all the time doing TSN work for Toronto FC and for TSN and World Cup European Championship. It's more difficult now. There's a possibility I may be there for European Championships and at TSN. So if I am, I'm stopping by and I'll bring you.
But you got to come through Montreal first. You come through Montreal.
Oh, you guys in Montreal? Yeah.
Yeah, no, us in Toronto, we don't.
Oh, yeah. You guys don't have a great.
We have heat. We have heat. Montreal.
I'll go through Montreal and maybe have a chat with you.
We'll bring you to Little Italy. We'll bring you to come and eat some pasta at my mom's. Then we're gonna take a couple of glasses of grappa, and then we'll send you on your way to those manja cakes in Toronto. It's okay.
I'm going to tell all my friends in Toronto. I'm going to tell them that.
You can tell them that. But Janusz, thank you so very much for joining us. For people in Canada that are watching, I know we don't have ESPN. I know you have the YouTube. Sometimes some clips, but there's anybody. How can we look at, let's say, your critiques? Is any other than YouTube? Can we see any of your stuff anywhere?
Well, if I don't know if you guys get ESPN. If not, I do the ESPN stuff on YouTube. I mean, Twitter. Obviously, I'm on that, so it's difficult with that. So maybe if I'm at TSN, which I've been many times, so maybe a couple people there know what I do. But yeah, I mean, between the countries, that's sometimes difficult. So YouTube at ESPN is probably the best way.
YouTube on ESPN, yes, because here in Canada we're not worthy of ESPN. That's what they tell us.
TSN is like ESPN. It looks the same, right?
It looks exactly the same, but we don't have you, or we have all your coworkers, but it's okay. And you look, just to make sure, when we're able to cross the border, I do have cousins in Connecticut, so maybe I'll come and find you. But you cross the border, the grappa, the pasta, everything will be ready, right? We can watch live Serie A on Rai with those Italian, very monotone commentators, right. And we'll go from over there. But honestly, thank you so very much for joining us tonight. And I'm gonna let you get back to a regular family stuff. And please take out those jerseys, frame them, do something. Honestly,
it's long overdue. That's for sure. At least a few of them that are really special. So.
Yeah, I'm sure people would enjoy seeing those. But again, thank you so very much for joining us. I'm going to bid you farewell. Happy Merry Christmas and
Merry Christmas to you and everybody, all your listeners. And we'll see this weekend. Hopefully, Milan will get it done.
Have yourselves a good night. Thanks, guys.
Oh, by the way, I have a Milan Lazio next Wednesday, so at least I get to commentate, and I'll try to not to be too biased, but I'm commentating.
We'll be watching. We'll be watching, and if anything, we'll send you the tweets. Thank you, Janusz. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Thanks, guys, for watching. Ciao.